fellow co-chair, and we have at least enough of our members present to run a regular meeting. And we have a busy agenda, so let's get to it. The first item on the agenda is a revocable consent application to connect the Highline extension to Manhattan West. And I see Henry is here. Henry, are you presenting this?
The short answer is not. I'm traveling and the Wi-Fi is a little spotty. So I'll defer to my colleague and the person that's handling this project, Diana, to present. And wanted to say, thank you for having us again. It's good to be here. And I'll let Diana take it from there.
Okay, Diana, welcome.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diana Zakem. I work with Henry Casso at Manhattan West, and we've been putting together this Highline Moynihan connector project. It's in construction now out in the field. So we wanted to touch on a few updates related to this project, and I have Michael Grieser here from SOM, who SOM is the design architect that submitted for the revocable consent for the actual connection. But we, since we've been going through construction, we wanted to give a few updates as to our current status right now in construction. We'll go through the revocable consent itself and the changes that it entails, and talk through a brief look ahead as we push towards project completion. So I'll turn it over to Michael Grieser now to give a brief update.
Yeah, hi. So, yep, this is the Highline connector, and it is consisting of two bridges on 30th Street and Dyer Avenue. We've got a planted steel and concrete bridge on 30th, and then a timber bridge, which is spanning over Dyer. And that is the element that's actually connecting into the Magnolia Court at Brookfield, Manhattan West. And you can see here, this was kind of at the kickoff of the project, summer 21, and then kind of our proposal. And this is where we are now. So this is a photo we took yesterday, but we've pretty much completed the 30th Street Bridge with the planting is coming in, and we're currently in the process of assembling the timber bridge to the side, and that will be lifted into place further down the project. Just some highlights of the project. We've had to do a slight demolition at the spur, and we have repaired that and kind of created an opening in the existing Highline to allow for us to connect there. And then up on the Highline, this is a photo we took today. The trees survived the winter and are fully in bloom. It's looking fantastic. And then from the groundscape, the substantial completion on the concrete and steel and everything that's the superstructure for that bridge. Also highlighting some of the elements that kind of in the streetscape and improvements. We've installed all the DOT lighting and increased lighting underneath the connector. We've also received the planters for the 30th Street underneath the connector. These are in the raw form. This is kind of just a mock-up, but they're currently weathering, and they will be the same color as the Corten the steel, or the weathered steel that you see to the side. And then this is a photo kind of looking down from, there's a loft building between 31st and 30th Street, where you can see we've created this new pedestrian sidewalk along Dyer Avenue, where one didn't exist before, which will tie into a new pedestrian crosswalk at that Dyer Avenue. And then these are just kind of some of the updates on the timber bridge. We're working, it's going to be fully assembled with the walkway and everything before we lift it into place. So these are action shots from the last few days. And that brings us into the revocable consent. So Magnolia Court, back in 2016, we had a revocable consent. Mainly, it's this little sliver in red you can see here, and this is to accommodate the stair and elevator at this overbuild for Dyer Avenue, and to allow for the connection of the timber bridge on Dyer. We're slightly modifying that revocable consent area by carving out a small small area in that glass guardrail. And we're not touching any of the elevators or stairs or bollards or anything like that. It's purely just a small little carve out for this connection. And that's the blue is the new timber bridge connecting in at that guardrail, which will complete it's a ADA and direct surface to either side. You can see the kind of in red the before, and then the blue is what the connector, how the tie-in will be. Diana, do you want to walk through the look ahead?
Sure. So as Michael was discussing, we're pre-assembling the timber bridge. You can see it there in the roadway on just north of the 30th Street connector. We're pre-assembling that with all the components to it. And we are targeting a couple of weekends for a potential rigging of that bridge into place. It's a bit weather dependent, whether we hit the first weekend, which is weekend after next, or if we would fall to our backup weekend, that May 5th to 8th weekend. Following the timber bridge installation into place, we would then be completing our ground plane work, such as the diagonal crosswalk that allows pedestrians to cross and then walk under the 30th Street landscape portion of the bridge. We would also complete the signal install and barriers. And then with a little luck and the help of many friends, we're hoping to open the bridge in June 2023, following that completion of the ground plane work. So that's our update. As we wanted to give a few of those points here as we were discussing the revocable consent. I'm not sure if there are any questions related to that.
Great. Thank you both so much for the presentation. So we'll have questions from committee members, and then we'll field any comments or questions from the members of the public who are in attendance. I have a couple of quick questions, and then I'll throw it to committee members. So just to be clear, the surface of the timber bridge, and by the way, the steel bridge, the planter bridge looks fantastic. The deck of the timber bridge is flush with the plaza. There's no elevation change?
Correct. Yep. It's a roll on, roll off, fully ADA accessible bridge. And that's the same with the 30th Street bridge. It's all sloped appropriately so that it's a nice, easy transition.
Oh, from span to span. Okay, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then just to, to frame our discussion here, when you first presented this pedestrian bridge, our overriding concern as a committee was to make sure that the the pedestrian spaces beneath the bridge were as developed as the bridge. So you've set a high bar for yourselves because the bridge is looking great. And we'd love to see the spaces beneath the bridge look as good. I see Christine has her hand up.
Yes. Do you want me to respond to that?
Of course.
Okay, so I would like to note that right now we are using the area below the 30th Street connector for some construction staging, right? And in that month following our timber bridge erection, that's when, immediately following that weekend, we would be clearing out that area where the timber bridge assembly is happening now, just north of 30th Street. And then we would be working towards completion and final paving up to that curb within that following month. So that June 2023, we would have our walkway ability with the diagonal crosswalk that would take you from, Michael, can you show on the screen where the diagonal crosswalk goes with your cursor? Yeah. Yeah, it would take you from that corner where the orange and white barriers are currently located under to the location underneath the 30th Street connector, and then you would be able to continue walking all the way west to 10th Avenue. But that will be completely cleared out.
Okay, so that's included within your scope of substantial completion.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. All of our site fence gets pulled back and out of there. Actually, that weekend of the closure, when we install a timber bridge, that's when we do a whole changeover to a more temporary, like orange yodoc system that's a little more easily moved, those water-filled plastic yodocs. And then you'll see us starting to transition out of there by completing all the asphalt pavement up to the curb, getting those the planters underneath that Michael showed a picture of in the construction update. Those planters are going to get planted in May, and they would be open, like that whole area would be open to the street come that June opening.
Great.
So
And just so everybody's clear, the scope of the revocable consent that you're requesting today is merely the fascia of the plaza that needs to be modified and altered to connect the timber bridge. That's the entire extent of the revocable consent. Am I correct? Okay.
Correct. That we had. Yeah. There was a main project revocable consent that was part of. That was with the approval of the entire Highline Moynihan connector. But because Brookfield had an existing revocable consent at Magnolia Court, we had to also file this modification to show that connection.
Understood. Okay. Christine, do you want to go later or you want to go now? Are you on mute, Christine?
Yes. Okay. Could you go back or forward to show the all the sidewalks in the area?
That aerial view that we had
at
the end of our construction update. Do you want this view or you want the other one from the other view? Yeah, go back, Michael, to right before our revocable consent slide. One more.
That one.
Yeah, this one on the right. So as I mentioned in an email, you have redone the sidewalk, but the sidewalk above that is up all the way up to 9th Avenue is in terrible shape. And I do realize that that may not be in your scope of work, but it's really very, very bad. So I would appreciate if you could talk to the Port Authority and between all of you figure who is going to fix that sidewalk. So that, because now when people are going to come from either 30 or 31st Street and they're going to see the beautiful pylon down there, they're going to want to go there. And that first section is really bad.
Christine, can I just ask for a clarification? Is it the area that's where the buses are parked alongside?
Yeah, if you see the area where you have, right, exactly.
Okay, yeah, right. I think the approach with Port Authority is to say, hey, once this is done, which is very soon, June is around the corner, we're expecting a lot more pedestrian flow on this sidewalk. So you don't want, you don't want a hazard for the increased.
Well, since the Port Authority is part to this whole project, I'd like to also use Brookfield to pass the message as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should send an email, a letter to both of them saying this is kind of the approach to the project, and we would like. I mean, it would be great if they fix all that stuff before June, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have reached out. We received that request, ahead of this meeting. We have reached out to Port Authority, and they are working internally on a response. Immediately, we will go out there before opening and make sure there's no significant trip hazard.
Oh, this is full of trips.
Sidewalk. But
this is full of trips.
Yeah.
This is like from one end to the end to the rest. These are trips everywhere. So it's really, I wouldn't raise it if it was one or two little thing. It's like every plank is damaged.
Okay, understood. Let us take that back and discuss with Porter, and we can get back to you about it.
Thanks. Do we have any more questions from committee members?
Tina has her hand up.
Tina?
Yeah, sorry, can you just go back to the calendar again? Where, right, I'm just sort of curious. It's sort of, what happens between May 8th and June?
Yeah, a lot of work, actually. I know it looks like a quick timeline, or I mean, it looks like that we're almost done, but after we install in the timber bridge, we have to make the connection and make sure it's ADA compliant up at the bridge level. And then at the roadway level, we will be working to install our vehicle protection, any like concrete barriers that would be around the columns, as well as finishing up all that sidewalk work to allow for our overall crosswalk. Maybe, Michael, could we go to the rendering at the beginning of the deck, because that might help everyone see. So we have to place that diagonal crosswalk as well as the barrier underneath the bridge in order to complete our project. We also have some signals work to allow for the pedestrian crossing. It will be a signalized pedestrian crossing. So there's a lot of steps to clean up down below to make sure it's complete, that follow on, and it just drives to that overall amount of time that we need after the timber bridge installation to truly say that we're at substantial completion.
Okay, great. I just hope it could be done by June. That would be great. Thank you.
Yes, we're eager to be finished as well.
All right, thanks, Tina. I see a hand up from a member of the public, Candace. Janine, can you bring Candace over?
Yeah, I'm bringing her over. Candace, please accept.
Candace, hi, is your question about this particular project? Hello, Candace. Hello, Candace.
I didn't know I raised my hand. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, don't worry. But you
I-
don't have a question about this pedestrian bridge, do you?
Not that, well, yes and no. It's more underneath the existing metal one. I just wanted to know more if it's just planters that's going across and it's just going to be like cement underneath, or is it going to be parking? The two different renderings, it looks like there's cars parking underneath. I'm just trying to figure out what's going underneath.
Oh, the curbside reg? Okay, yeah, I know there's a lighting program and I know there are planters that we requested, but maybe can one of the presenters speak to that?
Yes, sure. So this is on the left side. Candace, you'll see the view underneath the 30th Street, which is the landscape bridge that's looking west towards 10th Avenue. So that's showing that is all a concrete sidewalk underneath there. To the right of the bridge, which is the north side, that is going to go back to the Port Authority as their Dyer Avenue roadway, which accesses the Lincoln Tunnel. To the left of the bridge in this image, that asphalt pavement is going to be paved up to the curb line, and it will become part of the 30th Street roadway that passes straight through from west to east. And then underneath the bridge here, this will continue to be a pedestrian sidewalk, a typical concrete pedestrian sidewalk. And along the left side columns is where we will have the planters at every column, similar to what you see in the picture right to the right. There's going to be 2 planters at every column, which will have a nice planting, and then an architectural light at the base of the planter.
So just review the lighting program, because the planters have lighting along the edges, and there's also pedestrian lighting overhead. And then there's also the street lighting, which is provided as well. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. We have pedestrian lighting above, which are similar to the other DOT light fixtures that you see over at the 10th Avenue Highline Spur. And then we have an architectural feature lighting at the base of the planter, which provides, an additional enhancement to the underside here. It'll be like a little light along the rim, like a little LED strip on the rim that should have a nice effect on the sidewalk and lighten up. But we intend for it to be well lit underneath.
I dare to ask if I know this. I don't know how far this has gone in to committee for the extra pedestrian way, but I know the area has been in need of dog parks. Can we think about maybe putting a dog park under here? I mean, it's really not, people can't complain about the noise. It would bring life to the area. Maybe I'm just trying to, this is going to be like an empty space because nobody really wants to I run up and down this area, so I know what kind of area it is. It's quiet at night, so it would probably bring something to.
Well, it's going to be it's a sidewalk, so I don't think we can comment.
Dale, I think I have an answer to that. So, as you know, there is a new dog run, which is being put at 26th Street, right? And 10. And then, or even 28th Street and 10. And then, there is another dog run which is being contemplated, very, very early discussions along the Hudson Boulevard to replace the one that will be removed by the Port Authority at 10th Avenue and 39th Street. This area here is conceived as a pedestrian a sidewalk, and probably is not the plan.
I'm just thinking, my thought is because the area is like the fit students and we have all the new towers that went in. That was my thinking, just to bring a little bit more life to, it's just at night, it's dark, even with
No, I know that dogs are more lively than people, but
All right, I'm just saying, I tried to let everybody know. So yes, thank you guys.
Thank you for raising the need. Candace, it would be a tough move to commandeer a sidewalk for that purpose. Okay, do we have any more questions? I think that's everything. So do we have,
I think what I'm hearing is that I'm not hearing anybody against that, which is good. And adding the request for the sidewalk between 9 and Dyer, that would be the resolution if somebody wants to.
We have no objections to the revocable consent, and we ask that Brookfield join us in requesting sidewalk improvements at the extended portion of the sidewalk along 30th Street.
Yeah.
We look forward to the pedestrian improvements, the grade level pedestrian improvements happening along with the overhead improvements.
Right. Perfect.
Is that a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Alice. All those in favor, you can raise your physical hand or your virtual hand. Great. Any opposed? Hands down if you've raised them. Any P&Es? Okay, great. Thank you so much for the presentation, Diane and Michael. And we look forward to the completion of this project.
Okay. Thank you for having us.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Capstone. And I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Who do we have here from Capstone? Hi there, Michelle.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Thank you. I am joined by my teammates, Camille, Christina, and Chuang Tu. And then our faculty advisor has joined us as well, Michael.
Hello, welcome everyone.
So we would like to give a high-level overview of our capstone project. We've really enjoyed working with the community board over the last, almost 9 months. I know we've worked really closely with Christine, who I see here on the call, so I want to give her a shout out. She's been incredibly helpful throughout this process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to walk through just a handful of slides,
Sure.
and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, and if you could just familiarize all the attendees, committee members, and public members with about the scope and the nature of the project.
Absolutely. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Double click to enter full screen.
Not yet. Right?
Double click to enter full screen mode. Or it says has started screen sharing.
Yeah, sorry, maybe try again because we don't see the content.
I think it froze. One moment. Let's try it again.
We're getting that same message.
It keeps pausing. Camille, do you want to try and share your screen? For sure.
And if not, Janine, do you have the presentation?
I don't have it, but if you email it to me, I can show it. Sometimes PDF works better than PowerPoint. Just to know.
Should you continue to have problems, we have a workaround, but let's, oh, here we go. Okay, great.
Okay, perfect. So while Camille is loading that up, I'll give you a little bit of background on our team and our project. So the 4 of us are Masters of Urban Planning students at NYU. And as part of our curriculum, we complete a year-long capstone project. So we are partnered with a client, whether it's a government agency, nonprofit, community board, and we work together to come up with some sort of final deliverable that is helpful to you at the end of this process. And so Community Board 4, connected with the university last summer to start a project related to access and connectivity in the district. And so our project really narrowed in on how can we improve access and connectivity within the neighborhood to the far west side of the district. So ensuring that we have access to all those assets on the far west side.
Looks like there's a roadblock to the sharing. So if you want to, one of you want to try emailing it to Janine, if it doesn't work.
Sure, I will do that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it does not work.
Not at all. Thank you for the overview.
Yes.
So just so we're prepared to look at what we're going to look at once it's loaded, is the scope of the scope of the area considered strictly within CB4? Is it like 14th Street to 58th Street, or does it extend somewhat?
So the study area is 14th to 59th from 10th Ave to the waterfront. Okay,
great. And I see, looks like Christine got the.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. Double duty tonight. Okay. You're the co-chair and the tech person.
So Camille, Michelle, just tell me what to do.
Yeah, you can go ahead and get started on the next slide there.
Okay, here we go.
Perfect. So we're going to be going through just our methodology, a high-level summary of our findings, as well as some of our recommendations and folks that would be potentially involved in implementing some of the recommended actions. So first off here is an overview of our methodology. So we relied on a 311 analysis of relevant complaints in the district. We also looked at Vision Zero data. We conducted a survey that got, I believe, over 150 responses. We held 4 focus groups and then did 4 site visits through different parts of the study area. And through that process, we landed on 3 focus areas. So since the study area is quite broad, we wanted to provide some of general thematic recommendations for the area, but then to provide some really tailored, discrete feedback, we focused in on these 3 areas. And that's Pier 97, the cruise terminal, and Chelsea Waterside Park. So Christina, if you'll go to the next slide. So kind of a lot of text here, but these summary of findings is broken out by focus area. So one of the key themes I think through each area is kind of poor wayfinding or the absence of wayfinding. And so one of our core recommendations is implementing additional wayfinding measures to improve connectivity throughout the neighborhood, as well as direct folks to assets on the far west side. We also specifically focusing in on Pier 97, identified, there's no direct access to this, what's going to be this new beautiful park. So what are some ways in which we can get folks safely from the east side of 9A over to Hudson River Park? We also looked at some potential for improving connectivity at West 59th Street. So activating that underpass through measures like street furniture, lights, city bike station, ways in which we can utilize kind of this vacant dark space. Hopping over to the cruise terminal, again, limited wayfinding, and also have a focus on the safety and competing modes of transit when it comes to the dropping off of passengers and how that conflicts with users' use of the space just around the Manhattan Cruise Terminal. And then lastly, Chelsea Waterside Park, high volume of bicycles can lead to some conflict. So what are some ways in which we can, again, reduce conflict between these modes of transit while also improving east-west connectivity? And so with that, I will pass it over to Camille to walk through the next 2 slides.
Awesome, thanks, Michelle, and apologies for the challenges with screen sharing.
Nice.
So yeah, as Michelle mentioned, these are kind of a couple of our recommendations. We've been working with CB4 a lot to kind of refine, so we're still in the kind of editing phases, but these are just a few that we wanted to share with you. They pertain to all 3 of our focus areas, as well as kind of study area wide. So in particular, we just wanted to share the recommendation of activating the underpass West 59th Street, utilizing street furniture, art, city bike station, lighting, etc., just to make that area a bit more comfortable and pleasant experience for residents who are in that area. Again, wayfinding was a really, really big finding for us. We worked with Christine and the entire CB4 board to really kind of define what this might mean for the area. So specifically, we were kind of alerted to challenges originating from 9th to 11th Avenue in accessing both the cruise terminal itself as well as the area kind of directly surrounding the cruise terminal, as that is a very high traffic area of the neighborhood. So, we are recommending to establish very clear signage that indicates, best walking and public transportation directions to that area. And then moving forward, we were alerted to the fact that The area is around 46th, 48th, and 50th through 54th intersections have limited pedestrian protection and bi-directional bike lanes that make it challenging to kind of share that space. So we were hoping to install some speed tables and signage for cyclists, just to limit that speed and make the area a bit safer for pedestrians around there, as well as putting up a barrier that kind of connects the bike lane to the surrounding terminal. And then again with signage, this is again pertains to the cruise terminal. Many ride shares will illegally drop off passengers. Vehicles will drop off passengers either along 9A or elsewhere on the other sides of the street. So we wanted to ensure that vehicles had proper signage to indicate that they can, especially those traveling north, access the terminal through the proper turnaround via the left turn on 55th Street. So we wanted to make that very clear. We wanted to convert 22nd and 24th Streets to shared streets. That's areas near Chelsea Waterside Park, focus area. And then additionally, we wanted to update the M12 bus route to include stops at the key assets along the Greenway to ensure that that bus accessibility is paramount. And yes, if you continue on to the next slide, these are kind of the agencies and stakeholders that we hope to engage with these recommendations. It's not exhaustive, but given our focus areas and sort of our familiarity with the area, we think that this list could help us kind of push our recommendations forward, both in the short and long term. So each recommendation has a timeline that is attached to it. So as well as kind of the relevant party who should be engaged with. And that is kind of very high level what we've been working on, and our final report will be made available May 8th. So pretty soon.
Thanks, Camille. And I think Dale is bringing in Jessica, who has also been working really closely with us to provide a little bit more framing and context around the process and our recommendations.
Yeah, Janine, can you bring Jessica over, please?
Yep, she's coming over now.
Great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dale and Christine. Thank you, Team NYU. I did just want to offer a few comments before we hear from the committee. One is that this is a project scope that was defined over the summer. Jeffrey, in particular, really was interested in exploring the challenges of connectivity on the far west side. And so applied to NYU for this group, and we built a subcommittee or a small committee to work on this with representatives from transportation, both land use committees, housing, and waterfront and parks. And so a lot of what you just heard is specific to transportation, but you will in the final report see some other recommendations more related to those issues of connectivity and the visual elements, not just wayfinding as was mentioned, but also streetscape and tree planting and things like that, that will really hopefully help enliven the area and build more of a sense of free flowing of what we know to be this great asset of the Hudson River Park kind of further in. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this was not a transportation specific work group, but as you can see here, so many of the issues related to enjoying the far west side involve literally getting there and crossing and the issues of transportation. So that's why there is such a focus here today. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that the group was really tasked with coming up with some very actionable suggestions, things that could be implemented, potentially like, in the short term and that, with some advocacy and letter writing, et cetera, could happen, again, in a more short term manner. What they were not asked to do is like transform or re-envision access, right? And so I know there's been some groups or folks who have read some of these findings and said, well, where are the big swings, or where are we? And I appreciate that. And I think there's certainly a place for that. But that was not what this group was asked to focus on. So if we feel like that is something we do want to revisit, there is always the potential, as Michael, who's joining us here from NYU, has alerted us to apply for future capstones, and an opportunity to always change scope and kind of build out from this. Sorry, two last things, and then I'll be quiet. One is that we learned through these walking tours that were referenced, and we know this, but just how big the district is and how vast. And so they really did attempt to, if they were going to make specific recommendations, really drill down on these areas. So that is why it is limited in nature. And again, they use those different data sources to help define which areas were selected. The last thing I wanted to mention was related to timing. As you heard, their final report is due May 8th. They're still very much in draft mode, but they will be making another presentation to the executive committee on the 24th. And so if anyone is interested in digging in on this a little bit more, or seeing more of this before we get to final, would certainly encourage you to come and be part of that discussion. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chairs, and for you to, and Christine, if there's anything. Christine has been very active, as Michelle said. So Christine, please, if there's anything you'd like to add, please do so. And then would love to hear any thoughts from the committee, and want to acknowledge Charlie was also in the working group. And I think I saw him here as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. That was some really important context, because looking at the presentation, it struck me just how actionable, and how it's like everything that's being proposed is within the set of the toolboxes of all the respective stakeholders. Of course, it comes down to some potential conflicts between city and state on the West Side Highway, but
you mean none of this is easy? That's what you're saying?
That being said, that being put aside, let's hold out the possibility that our city and our state can work together on this. Christine, did you have something to add?
Not right away. I know this was a huge undertaking, and the more we were going, the more we realized that, it was really big. And thank you to the students for picking up so much information in so little time. So I think that's laudable, and that's going to be used in the future. So that's good. I'll let the other people raise their hand, and then I'll make a comment at the end.
Okay, great, Christine. I have hands up from Brett.
All right, thank you. Because I'm AICP and this kind of study gets me really excited, I'm gonna give myself a self-imposed limit of 5 things to pick up on, even though I can probably go on and on and on. So first, thanks for giving our district some love here, and some really good information. I think, as Dal was saying, and Christine, these are actionable. There is life. First, I just want to underscore how much I love that underpass idea at West 59th Street, activating it. We know that we don't usually get a lot of cooperation from when it's New York State DOT, and that's their jurisdiction there. But it doesn't mean that we don't try to do the best we can. But given that's a huge crossing area that we know people need to be able to get across safely, and that's where the bike lane bends. That whole area probably is due for a huge study. There's so much that could be done there, and it's just an underutilized area. Second thing I want to pick up on is really the bicycles. When we're talking about access to the park, I would make the argument that bicycles might actually be the biggest obstacle. Speaking as someone who loves biking on the Hudson River Park, it's my favorite place to go. But I also walk there a lot. The stress and anxiety crossing that bike lane it can't be understated. It feels like a huge safety concern as well. So signage definitely needs to be bigger in our neighborhood. Finding a way to get enforcement on, but especially the signs that say bicyclists must yield to pedestrians. It's state law because you're on a state greenway. I would just throw out a number: 92% of all bicycles do not yield to pedestrians. So, so that, maybe it's about traffic signals. I'm not sure about speed tables. We still do have to be concerned about safety for bicyclists, and anything you do to make the road difficult to bicycle smoothly could be a safety issue. But yes, with the signs. The third thing, I just wanted to pick on that cruise terminal area. Obviously needs a major transportation overhaul. Access to the waterfront there would be fantastic. Not just getting to the West Side Highway. There's already a walkway that was installed before, and I think 9/11 made sure that we couldn't get access to it for safety concerns. Again, that's going to be a very difficult thing to overcome to get us access there, but if we can get access to the waterfront there, that might also mean getting access to the West Side Highway would become more of a to the Hudson River Park would be more of a priority. Fourth thing, just it was already kind of mentioned, that when we have a conflict between New York State and New York City DOTs, usually there isn't a resolution. The two kind of don't talk to each other, so don't underestimate how challenging that is. So any kind of solution. Any kind of solutions or opportunities probably should not rely too heavily on those two agencies cooperating. That would be my suggestion. And the last thing is, and it's more of a question, and maybe someone in the committee can help here. We know that I believe State Senator Hillman was doing a big West Side Highway safety study. I'm not sure if I ever saw an outcome from that, if anything was actually concluded or published. So that might be worth following up on, because there might be some nuggets in there if you hadn't already discovered that. That's it. I'm going to give it a rest, let somebody else talk. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brett.
Hey, Brett, Dale, I'm sorry, let me,
go ahead.
Do you want me to answer to Brett? The study that Brad Oilman did concerned more anything under 34th Street, below 34th Street, or even below 14th Street. And really the intervention above 14th Street were extremely limited, kind of, let's put some sign. So that made, this study could be the beginning of a larger study, just like when we send our letter, to say we need about the bike lane and getting more bike space could be the beginning. So we need to use all these pieces to go to the next level.
Great. Alan.
Thank you. And thank you very much. But just to follow up on that, Christine, I think Dick Godfrey's office also did a couple of studies that are floating around somewhere I've been looking for. So maybe we can dig those up also. But thank you very much for this. A lot of work and a lot of thought went into it. I have a couple of questions, but focusing on Chelsea Waterside Park, in the focus area on the sheet, is there a number 3 dot that isn't coming up that is worth mentioning, or is that, because it looks like there's some.
Yeah, let me just pull it back up here. So for Chelsea Waterside Park, I think the recommendations that we included for the purposes of the presentation today were the conversion of 22nd and 24th Streets to shared streets, and then also exploring with the MTA, potentially updating the M12 bus route to serve assets along the Greenway, including Chelsea Waterside Park.
No, I understand. In the focus area group, you have 2 dots. It looks like there's something underneath the second dot. Second, is there another line on that?
Are you talking about a presentation, Alan, or a different document?
I think
No, in the findings. In the findings.
Oh,
yes.
If you scroll up.
It got cut off. Yeah, I think it got cut off a little bit.
Yeah.
That was the intersection of 11th Avenue, 20th and 22nd and 23rd Street is in poor condition.
Okay, so is that referring to like the southern end of the dog run, where everything comes together? The 22nd
Yes.
Street crossing?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad that came up because I didn't see it, and that happens to be a really, really miserable place for folks to to cross over, especially starting around 3:30. Everything seems to like stop right there, and people have to go around cars and maneuver all around. You mentioned the minimum east-west public transit outside of M23, which does go all the way into the park. Was there a recommendation to increase more public transportation on that, or?
I think with that, our recommendation was specific to like the updating the M12 route. But if you have other ideas or recommendations, we're open to hearing your thoughts.
No, I think public transit is pretty good. Folks can get off 8th Avenue subway, 7th Avenue subway, take the M23. They can get off either at 11th Avenue and cross right into Chelsea Waterside Park, or they can wait and go around and go into the park itself. I did have a question about the shared streets, though. Given that the two streets, 24th Street, is a very heavily trafficked throughway, if you want to call it, coming off of 11th Avenue, it's oftentimes very heavily used by trucks delivering into all the galleries, and the same thing with 22nd Street. Would there have been a better street to pick for an open some shared streets on the west side?
Yeah, that's oh, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, I think the idea, Alan, was to say for those streets which have access to the park where you can cross, right? Making those streets more pedestrian friendly. And I think the concept of shared street is kind of a catch-all. Yeah. It could be widened sidewalk, it could be greener, it could be any of that, so that people can see from 11th Avenue or from 10th Avenue that there is an entrance to the park. So shared street is a little bit of a catch-all there.
Right. Because 24th Street, you just cross right over.
That's right.
Right. So
right.
It is the okay.
Right. And 26 is the other option. I mean, it's like probably one of the two, but not both of them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, thank you very much. I thought it was a good presentation. Looking forward to seeing if there's some more stuff that comes out on this. And I was glad to see that our section of the Greenway had good access as opposed to all these other sections going above 30th Street. So thanks for everything. It was good.
Thanks, Alan. Charlie.
Hey guys, I just wanted to thank the Capstone Group. I've had the pleasure of serving on the committee along with Christine and listening in to all the calls and doing a lot of the tours in person with everybody. And really just want to say I appreciate all the work that they put into this, and looking forward to seeing the final draft. I was definitely among the group that was hoping for the bigger swings, but understand Jessica's point at what the mandate was for this particular project, and hope it can be a jumping off point for some bigger swings. And I also just wanted to call attention to the cruise terminal area. I think pretty much looking at all the survey responses that came in, that was a real pain point for both pedestrians and cyclists. I think if you look at the entire Greenway, that's the most glaring problem. I mean, there's a 2-foot wide pedestrian lane, and a lot of people in the comments in the survey talked about how you can't even pass someone, like you can't walk 2 by 2. It's so bad. And I know that area was closed after 9/11, but I don't think Al-Qaeda is going to be blowing up cruise ships anytime soon. And I really think that our community board should be working towards getting waterfront access open there. So thank you guys for all the work.
Thank you, Charlie. Viren.
Just a very quick question. Excellent study, guys. Just so that as a background information, I'm an architect, urban designer, and also teach at City College and Columbia University. So my students take on similar studies. And I think your sort of list of things that you want to achieve are pretty sort of, it's an extensive list. So thank you for doing it. One quick question, it might not fall under the purview of this study, but West Side Highway has been looked at in many, many different ways over the years. And one of those ways was to sort of look at it as a potential boulevard moving forward with sort of changes in how we would hopefully travel with electrical vehicles and whatever have you. Any thoughts in that regard, or is that something that you want to expand into? Let's go.
Yeah, thank you for your question. That I think was a bit beyond kind of the scope of our work, but I think it's definitely something interesting to bring up, and important to think about.
It's one of the big swings for the list.
Mhm.
Thank you, Viren. Do we have any more questions? Alan, are you good? You hand up again?
Yeah, I forgot something. Just as a suggestion in the stakeholders, because of the 22nd Street and 24th Streets, there is a block association, the 500 West Block Association. I think they would be a valuable tool as part of any further discussions going forward on what's happening on those streets. You can add that.
That's a good suggestion, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Christine.
yeah. So one or two, I think, suggestion that I would bring as a key suggestion is that everybody said that crossing the highway was very scary, and you know, I mean, just reducing the speed on the highway would be something that I think would be a good idea generally, you know, in the whole study area, and improving the crossings would be a good thing. You know, here you have recommendation only for the selected thing. And then generally speaking, also for each of the areas, pick up some streets to do sidewalk widening and tree planting, so that you can have that for each of these selection areas. And I think it may be in your final report, but just generally speaking.
Thanks, Christine. We have one more hand up, which is in one of the attendees, Ben Irwin. Can you bring over Ben, Janine?
Okay.
Hello, Ben. Do you have a comment on the capstone presentation or question?
Here, yeah.
Hello, Ben. Welcome. Ben Irwin, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi. Sorry about that. It seemed like my Zoom crashed when you
Oh.
called on me. Then it came back and then it wouldn't unmute me, but now I'm here. Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to thank everybody for all the work that you're doing to make our community better, and I really appreciate it. I'm a resident of 22nd Street between 7th and 8th, and I'm sort of here on a mission to understand more about what the plans are, particularly as it relates to 22nd and 24th Street for the Shared Streets Initiative. In particular, what I would be interested in knowing is the what, how, when, and who are working on this, and what the timetable is, where to read the proposals that are being tabled, and as much information as you could share with me and give me homework that I can do offline, I'd really appreciate.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
I think I have an update on that. So, so this scope, this study is not including, does not include 7 and 8, and it stops at 11th Avenue, first of all, Ben. And if you are concerned or interested into the study to make a shared street on 22nd between 7 and 8, I understand that the DOT is working on it. We have not seen any any document related to that. We are not privy to anything. And we do not have a sense of timeline. So we are pretty much in the same boat that you are.
Okay, well, that's helpful to know. Could you help me understand the process better about how it sort of goes from a DOT conversation to coming to CB4, to coming to the Block Association, to consulting with residents and so forth?
Well, typically it would go from the DOT to the community board. And I don't know whether there would be, I mean, essentially the role of the community board is to gather, to bring the residents to the meeting and to all together listen and make decisions, right? Or make recommendation. We don't make any decisions. I wish. But so that's the protocol. And typically, possibly the board, the DOT would go back to the drawing board. Or, let's say if community board was denying the project, then it would die, maybe, or unless somebody is pushing it. So that's the process.
So as it relates to the Block Association, I recently called Erik Bottcher's office and asked similar questions about this and wanted to get more information about this. And from what I understand, there are actually 200 Block Association. Is there, where can I look up to see who is holding these discussions? Because I'm a lifelong resident. I'm 53 right. And I was literally born in this apartment.
Nobody is
doing this.
Nobody is holding those discussions right now. The DOT is working on it, and that's all we know.
Okay, so is there a way to get the status of the information from DOT before it goes to CB4?
I don't know that. If you go to Erik Bottcher, you can ask for that.
Okay. Well, I guess that,
so
yeah, I guess that includes it. If you don't have any additional information,
we can have further discussions with you offline, but we'd like to return to the topic at hand, which is the Capstone project.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your work.
Thanks. We have one more hand up in the public, Jahia.
He's coming over.
Thanks, Janine.
Hey, sorry for the background noise. Hang on a second.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you. I was happy to join some of the walkthroughs and appreciate seeing all the results. So thank you. That was all.
Okay.
Hey, great. Happy, safe riding.
And I thought Jessica had her hand up. No?
That's so good. Did you want us, I don't see.
No, I took my hand down. I was going to respond. Okay. I'm all good. Thank you, Capstone Team. And thank you, everyone, for your comments. And I'm sorry. No, I have loud background noise. Take care, everyone.
Okay. So with this, we're awaiting the full presentation in May. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not. This is information only.
Yeah. So there won't be any. Charlie, is your hand back up or it's just up from before? If it's up from before, just lower it.
Oh, I thought my hand was lowered. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, this kind of status report specific to transportation impacts of the study was super helpful. We really appreciate it. We would love to, we await the final report. We're looking forward to working towards discussion and eventual implementation of a lot of the improvements that you've outlined. So the work is much appreciated. The thoroughness, the consideration of the full scope of our district and the narrowing in of the kind of most important areas is definitely appreciated. So I thank you all for your work and your presentation. We look forward to the final.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. And again, thank you to Christine, Jessica, Charlie, and all the other folks in the working group. This has been a really interesting and rewarding experience. And if you have any other feedback, feel free to share it. Otherwise, we will kind of wrap up our presentation here.
Great. We look forward to the full. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right. Now, speaking of Chelsea, we have the 500 West Block Association to present a request for speed bumps on 24th Street. In this case, it's 24th between 10th and 11th. So that's not, sorry?
See, a shared street would be perfect.
Yeah, this is, just to be clear, this is not the segment of 24th Street that was proffered or considered shared. This is between so the car wash on 10th and that Annabelle, what's the architect's name?
Seldorf.
Yeah, that Annabelle Seldorf building on 11th, the gorgeous building with the car elevator in it. So who is here from 500 West? I see Will, I see Andre, and I see Deborah. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to start out, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deborah and Andre to follow up. So hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to present today. My name is Will Wade. I'm the co-president of the 500 West Block Association, spanning 21st to 25th.
Sorry, do you have visuals?
No, we don't. No.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we're 21st to 24th Streets west of 10th Avenue. Over the past few weeks, the Block Association has heard from several business owners, residents, and building staff on the 500 block of West 24th Street that there's an issue on that block with speeding vehicles. We at the Block Association spoke with some of these concerned individuals. We went over there and we observed traffic on that block over several days and at different hours. After looking into the complaints, we can confirm the vehicles tend to speed down that block at unusually high and dangerous speeds. We think the issue might have something to do with the unique flashing yellow arrow turn onto 24th Street coming from southbound traffic on 11th Avenue. Whatever the cause, we believe that there's a potentially dangerous situation on West 24th Street, especially on Thursday evenings and Saturdays when people flock to the area to visit the many galleries on that block. In order to create a safer environment for pedestrians, bikers, and other drivers, we propose installing speed bumps to slow down the traffic on that block. We're presenting here today to ask for your support in doing so. I'll now turn it over to Deborah Oster-Panel. She's the owner of C24 Gallery on that block, and Andre Slapar, who works at 211th Avenue, both of whom have brought this issue to our attention.
Thank you, Will. My name is Deborah Oster-Panel, and I am actually the manager at C24 Gallery.
Correction.
Yeah, that's okay. We have 4 owners, 4 partners who own the gallery, 2 live abroad. 1 is a New York resident, 1 is a silent partner. And I've been working here managing the gallery for the past, almost 4 years. And we are a street-facing gallery. We're at 560 West 24th Street. So we are just about on the corner of 11th Avenue, right across from the Gagosian Gallery, which occupies the whole corner on the north side of the street. We're on the south side. Andre is the super for our building, 560 West, which is a dual-use building. We have the gallery on the ground floor, and then it's a commercial, rather residential space above us, as well as the building next to that, which is it 211 West?
211th Avenue.
211th Avenue. So basically what I can say is that my colleague and I work here Tuesdays through Saturdays, sitting in the lobby of the gallery, facing, with windows right on the street. And as Will was saying, cars come south on 11th Avenue and then turn. There's 2 lanes that bring them directly to make a left turn onto 24th Street. So I think it's kind of a through street for a lot of traffic. And periodically throughout the day, on a regular basis, we'll hear somebody coming whipping around that corner and just zooming down the block. Cars, sometimes trucks. And it's kind of disruptive just from a noise standpoint when it happens. It's noticeable. But I think what's of most concern is the fact that it's a very pedestrian heavy street. We have people, there's probably close to 15, 18 galleries on this block alone, in addition to a couple of 3 residential buildings, high-rise buildings with a number of tenants. So we have visitors to the galleries. We have also, it's a through street walking to the west side. You can get to Chelsea Piers from here. There are a lot of people walking their dogs. There's a lot of folks with kids. And especially, as Will was saying, on Thursday evenings is the traditional night for openings. So between 6 and 8 p.m., there's extra traffic to the pedestrian traffic to the neighborhood. And on Saturdays, we get a lot of traffic, and it's been increasing, I would say, pretty steadily over the last few years since we've gotten past COVID. Probably also concurrent with the rise in traffic from Hudson Yards. On Saturdays, it's become a big destination for local people. We get a lot of international visitors here. And I would say on Saturdays, these days we've been getting anywhere between 120 and 180 people visiting per day. So it's a lot. And yeah, and I guess basically we're just concerned that at some point, if somebody's crossing the street, and we get a lot of runoff traffic from Gagosian Gallery across the street, which is, as you know, a world famous gallery. And there's a lot of people who don't even know we exist until they come across from Gagosian and then they discover us. So basically we're talking about the possibility for somebody to get hurt as people come whipping around the corner. And then of course, as they're speeding down the block. So we think that putting speed bumps on the street would be a good deterrent, and some signage to that effect would maybe help people coming around the corner. And I think I'd like to turn it over to Andre, because as the super of the buildings, he has, I think, more time outside the building than I do. So Andre, you have a different perspective than I do.
Thank you. As Deborah mentioned, I am the super of 2 buildings on 24th Street, 211th Avenue, the Annabelle Seldorf from the building on the corner with the car elevator, and then 560 West 24th Street next door. I've been in the neighborhood working for 13 years, and I've noticed some changes on the block in general, aside from the need for speed bumps. So, I mean, the street, I think, because it is such a like a thoroughfare, a way of entering into the neighborhood from 11th Avenue, it is one of the wider streets, wider one-way streets in the neighborhood. In essence, it seems like you could potentially fit 2 lanes, two lanes of traffic, but essentially there's only one. So that might give people license, or they feel like it's a little bit easier for them to speed. So there's a structural impediment to us slowing people down without the speed bumps. And in other, because we talked about the gallery traffic with large trucks, there's also been a lot of construction in the neighborhood. So there've been a lot of trucks that have been bringing construction materials, large, very long trucks, open flatbeds, and I've seen them actually have issues making that turn, actually taking side mirrors off of cars and so forth. So there's a few issues, but I think the most important safety-wise is definitely these speed bumps. I can't see of any other reason or any other way that we can get people to slow down. As Deborah mentioned, there's a lot of galleries. The Avenue School is not far. We do have more families in that neighborhood as more buildings are going up, more pedestrians. It's definitely something I would like to see improve for the safety of everybody, get people to slow down a little bit.
I actually just heard a motorcycle go whipping past. I don't know if you heard the noise.
I thought I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Case in
Well,
point.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. And we definitely sympathize with your situation on 24th Street. Let's hear from some discussion from some of the committee members, some of whom are your neighbors, and we can seek to find a solution. I'll start with Alan.
Thank you,
Alan.
Dale. I'm here. I don't know if I heard. I don't know if I heard correctly, but this, I believe, this street was highlighted in the capstone as
Well,
a shared street.
it would be the next segment over. So they're looking at between 10th and 11th, and capstone was the section between 11th and 12th, or 11th and the highway.
Oh, between 11th and the highway. Oh,
Yeah, that would have. I think capstone's recommendation.
that doesn't make too much sense, but all right, whatever. No big deal. Longtime user of that street. I've been parking my car next to the building, next to the gallery, since that building went up, which is, I don't know, but 20 some odd years ago. I would go a step further, and I think this particular turn would be a great place to put a raised crosswalk or some kind of a raised area right at the beginning, and also, as Andre pointed out, doing something with that turn to make it a little bit more accessible for a lot of the trucks that come down there. You get a lot of, and I'm sure Andre has seen it, you get a lot of construction people on that street. You get a lot of very large art gallery trucks making deliveries constantly. It's a very, very, very busy street, similar to 22nd Street. But this one here, you've got folks that are looking to make that light from, I don't know where, by the time they see the light change, they've already made that turn and they're whizzing down that street. So I'm really concerned. It's like a real bad accident waiting to happen. Someone's going to come around that street and fly into some car.
Well, Alan, if I may interrupt, I've seen multiple cars.
And Andre, we're just going to have some community discussion, then we'll circle back to you.
So my suggestion really is speed bumps, yes, along the street, but something needs to be done with that turn. I think some sort of a raised crosswalk in there that really slows things down would be the right way to go.
Maybe a bulb out. Brett, and then David Warren.
Okay, yeah. Whenever we hear requests for speed bumps, I think it's always prudent for us to say, careful what you ask for, because the speed bumps might not be there. There might be some other tools that DOT might have to help with this. So a couple of things that I'm hearing is that there's a noise issue with cars coming fast. And lots of trucks. So now just imagine a truck going over one of those speed bumps, it's going to be a lot louder. So either noise is an issue or it's not, but if you have a lot of trucks, I'm not sure a speed bump would be recommended. That might be just another nuisance that you're now creating. If the issue is cars going around that corner quickly, there are neck downs and other ways to try to narrow that turn. So, that would mean DOT should have to come and study, see what the width is, what the required dimensions are to get those trucks through there. But that's the best way to really slow the turning, is to narrow the neck at that intersection. So there is that, I think, would be something that would be something that we could consider looking into. The other thing about speed bumps, usually when we get speed bump requests that do get some legs and do eventually lead to speed bumps, it's usually because there's data that shows there are actually crashes on the street, and so that some of the data helps show that you need that. And it's usually when there's children on the block that might run into the street, things like that. I don't know if slowing traffic for the sake of adults jaywalking is something that would make the best argument here. Now, one other thing maybe that could be a different thing. I'm not sure this is something that you thought of, and I don't know how successful campaign, Rudy, for this, but if the issue is there's a lot of galleries that are across the street and people are constantly going from, one side of the block to the other, maybe getting some kind of provision as a gallery district of some sort could warrant a stop sign mid-block with an actual crossing, something like that. Because that would help accomplish get people across the street without having to go to the end of the block, discourage people from jaywalking because now there's another place to cross. Again, that would take a study. If this is a high volume street, especially if it's a truck route, slowing traffic here might not be fly, but it might be worth a look into. So I think, those are just some of the things I would throw out there. I'm also on 24th Street, so I'm a couple avenues away from me, so I'm very familiar with this street. And just one other nuisance about a speed bump. I'm not sure you've considered, but if there are a lot of deliveries and people pulling up on that sidewalk, whenever the idea of a speed bump comes up, my wife reminds me because she does most of the parallel parking in our home. It's awfully hard to stop at the intersection when there's a speed bump, especially if it's a parking spot. So you'd be essentially taking a couple of parking spots off of your street for practical purposes. So again, so I think we're hearing the sentiment that you're concerned about safety, which is, I think, legitimate, especially with those turns. I would just suggest maybe thinking of other tools to implement before we take the tack of putting in speed bumps. That's gonna, sound very loud.
Thanks, Brett. David, Warren.
Hi, good evening. So when I saw this on the agenda, today I Googled substitute for speed bumps based on what Brett was saying. There's a lot of loud noise and a lot of problems. And the first thing they suggested, the best alternative, was shared streets. But I also saw something called, and I don't know if DOT does this because this was a private company, but speed cushions and speed cushions and speed tables that you need to, because the speed bumps, when a truck comes by, it's going to make a lot of noise. If a truck comes by fast at 2 o'clock in the morning on the speed bump, even slow, it's going to make a lot of noise. But if it's a shared street or curb, if it's a shared street, that would slow things down. Also, you said you have art galleries there. That would make things also better because people would be able to slowly walk around. The way shared streets are worked, it would fit into the groove of the art galleries. If for whatever your reasons you don't want that, the next best thing in my suggestion, looking at it, are these speed tables and speed cushions. Now, I don't know if DOT does that. I saw something from a private company. So that would just be my humble suggestion.
Thanks, David. We're piling up a number of alternative suggestions. I'm going to go to Viren and then to Tina.
Just very quickly, I think Brad and David both covered most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. But my suggestion would be, instead of asking for speed bumps, maybe the request could be made to DOT to come back with 21st century solutions rather than going back to 19th and 20th century speed bumps, which have proven to be pretty dangerous. And if you want to really see what I mean, if you go on 20th Street on the west side between 10th Avenue and 9th Avenue, you will see those two speed bumps. I actually live on the block. I don't have a major issue with that particular block because I only ride my bike through there. But I have heard a lot of people avoid going on 20th Street just because of speed bumps. So my suggestion would be, rather than proposing what to do, ask them to propose what to do.
Great, thanks, Karen. Tina.
Yeah, frankly, I thought this was going to be an easy one for me because, of course, safety is primary. So I thought, okay, put in the speed bumps, but now I feel totally incompetent in this fashion. And I do want somebody who can tell us how best to do this. So I'm not against the idea. I just want to do it smartly.
Right, fair point. Christine.
Yes, I think everything has been said about the street, the speed bumps. I'm looking online to your street and you have a lot of residences, right? How many residents you have on this street?
Is it 3, Andre?
2, 5, 5, 5.
Yeah, but I mean
There's
inside.
there's five buildings on the street.
5 buildings, but what, maybe 500 apartments or more?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, our experience is that people who have asked speed bumps and got it, especially when they are trucks, are really inconvenienced by them. So that's an issue. And one thing I would say is that, first of all, this street needs trees, because you would be surprised, but trees calm traffic. So since you are the 500 block association, you guys should go and measure the trees and look at where the trees should be every 25 feet and enter requests for trees. And then send a copy to Erik Bottcher, our council member, and ask that they plant trees. And the more trees you can plant, the better it is. And it's not intuitive, but it does. The second thing is that it seems that it reminds me the streets breadth at Penn South. Some of the streets were narrowed by painting, painting the lines. And I think we need to ask for that, because painting the lines doesn't cost a lot of money and it gives you a narrower street. As soon as the street is narrower, people slow down. And then one of the suggestions I heard, like, making a pedestrian crossing in the middle, but making it like a raised pedestrian crossing, which is like a speed bump combined with a pedestrian crossing. So people can go from the north to the south, and it's a nice place and it's identified. And we can also ask, neck downs and bike parking, etc. Anything which is creating obstacles for cars to go fast. And I think if we ask all of that and let DOT come back with an idea, that would be helpful.
So to summarize, we've heard the suggestions of potentially a neck down, and that would be at the corner of 11th, right?
At the entrance, yeah.
Yeah, 11th and 24th. We've heard the suggestion of a raised pedestrian crossing in mid-block.
Right.
We've heard the suggestion of additional trees in the streetscape, which does actually give drivers pause. They tend not to, when they see the treescape, they tend not to speed the way they might if it's just a more industrial looking block. Right. I mean, like it's psychology at work, but it works. It's effective, and it's been borne out in studies. And we've also heard, and we've seen this with with some of our neighbors in Chelsea, when that the speed bumps per se have some unintended. Oh, and also there was a speed table.
Well, the speed table was a pedestrian crossing, but also marking the street to create a narrower. And
the truffle.
Right.
Right. So some pedestrian areas within the street, the streetscape. So we
According to my research, the shared street was the best.
Oh, and then of course the
shared street would be kind of a long term, but we can have something in between, right?
Yeah, the long and the bigger picture would be like to look at a shared street. Viren, do you have your hand back up?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think along the same lines, thinking about changing the materials in particular spots so that it doesn't create any noise. Just to give you an example, in European cities, they talk about the carriageway. The carriageway is basically your parking lane, but the material has already been changed, so you can drive through much faster.
I don't know I don't know that's like within DOT's toolbox. Like
it actually is when they want to do it. So if you go to Broadway, Nassau, downtown Manhattan, if you go to Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, there are many places where they've done it. So it's not that it's not under there. They know how to do it. Let's say,
We can add that as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be like cobblestone.
It could be cobblestone. Sometimes they have this sort of concrete pavers, which are sort of slightly raised.
They are not going to do that. I don't know, but.
All right, well, we can, I mean, it's a good
examples.
idea. I think it's a good approach for us to take as a committee with DOT and as a board to take with DOT to say the problem, the residents of 24th Street have clearly identified a problem with the way the street is set up. The drivers whip around that turn and it's a potential conflict. We would like you to look at all of these potential tools within your box, including the ones outlined that we've outlined here tonight, and come back to us with recommendations. So do we have a well, let me just check to see if we have any discussion.
Jahaya has his hand up. I'll bring him over.
Jahaya, do you have your hand up about this specific item? I don't know if it was up from before.
No, I had gone back down. Let's see.
Hello. Yes, I did. I did
go
just
for
want
it.
to say that I think there's a lot of precedent of using the mid-block crosswalk, some of them with stop signs. I think of like 37th Street nearby that is like that. And I think, in my opinion, that does the best job of actually slowing the traffic and connecting both sides of the street, which it sounds like was desirable as well. So my vote for that.
That's true. Like a lot of the gallery traffic was crossing the street. And so, yeah. Okay. So we have this panoply of possible solutions that we're going to articulate in a letter to DOT to request. And do we have I'm sorry, Deborah, do you have your hand up for something else?
I do. Yeah, I do. I just, couple of comments and a question. I wanted to say, first of all, I love the idea of more trees on the block. Fabulous for so many reasons. I think that's great. And I do love the idea of the mid-street stop sign and crosswalk. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I did want to clarify that as far as the noise from the traffic, personally, and Andre, I'll let him speak for himself, but I wasn't citing the noise as the problem so much as the symptom of the speeding, which was the problem. So in that regard, I think I do see the potential issue with speed bumps for creating noise, a worse type of noise than the noise that we're currently experiencing, especially for the residents who would be getting that overnight, which we wouldn't have anything. So I certainly wouldn't want to create that problem for them. And I wanted to say that, Andre, you might have an issue with the narrowing of the street. I'll let you address that in a second, but also because I know there had been issues about big vehicles not being able to fit through that turn. And so I'm not sure
if we pursued a neck down, it would be, the DOT designs them for clearance. So that it's not going to be anything that'll prevent, to prevent normal traffic from flowing.
And then the only other thing I had to say was a question is I'm not clear on what a shared street is.
So shared street is a DOT program where the street, there are a number of possible configurations, but it seeks to favor pedestrians on the street, and it seeks to limit through traffic on the street. There's still the potential for deliveries, pickups and drop-offs, parking, and so on, but the street is designed with some features that encourage more pedestrian and cyclist use rather than being used as a through street. Sometimes it's a question of a schedule. Some shared streets are open to pedestrian uses during a specific schedule, for instance, and
Okay.
Yeah, with that, I would love to add, narrowing the street, I think with lines, maybe that's psychological, but the size of the street, I think, it still wouldn't necessarily be a deterrent for cars to go fast. I think we could do maybe a little bike lane on the south side of the street, which would push parking out a few feet, and that would narrow it, and then keep everything else in the same on the north. So that turn, there's a couple problems that I've experienced over the years. One is, like I discussed, trucks making that turn, not being able to fit, having to back up, traffic disruption up 11th Avenue. And then I do see people not realizing that it is a turn, and they go south along 11th Avenue, go up over the curb, knock down signs, and continue into the northbound traffic between 24th and 23rd. So, that's a separate issue, but it also kind of goes hand in hand with the speed that people are going at that point.
Are you saying that trucks currently have trouble negotiating that turn?
To some degree. So on the north side, number one, there's a lot of placarded, I guess, people who work for the city who have placards. They're able to park on that street, even though there's no parking from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So on the north side, they go all the way up to the crosswalk. And in front of 211th Avenue over the last maybe year, maybe 8 months, we've gotten a no standing zone from the crosswalk over to maybe one parking spot in front of the building. And on occasion, depending on the size of the truck, the trucks will still have trouble negotiating that, because they can only go so far to the right before the curb, for that, that curb that turns, keeps them from being able to make a wider right-hand turn necessarily. So it depends on the size of the truck. There are some issues on occasion, not so much anymore with that no standing zone, but
that should have helped. Well, thank you for clarifying that. So we'll go back to the committee. Do we have Christine, did you have something to add, or we have a motion to
No, I think we're good. I just took note of those little details that we can add.
Yeah, sure. We can request DOT make some changes on this block to some traffic calming measures, and we can make a list of suggestions. Notate, making note of the specific conditions that you as the residents with eyes on the ground have brought to us, have annotated. And do we have a motion in that direction?
Motion to adopt.
Do we have a second?
We do.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any P&Es? Any truck drivers who like speeding down 24th Street? No. Okay. Thank you to the residents and regulars of 24th Street for bringing it to our attention. And we'll get our letter out. We'll get our letter to the full committee. They'll vote on it, and then it'll move on to the DOT, assuming it passes.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
We hope to be in contact with this as the situation advances.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for taking up the issue for us. We
Sure
appreciate
thing.
it. Mhm.
All right. So now we have, who do we have here from the bid from HYHK?
Hi, Dale. You
Patty.
have Patty Maltezos. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
All right. I have a quick presentation I'd like to share.
Sure.
So I'll share my screen now. Okay, here we go. So I wanted to share the BID's pedestrian management program that we've been working on, and sort of give an update on what we've been doing, and then ask for some support on one of the sort of findings that we have. So the BID did a pilot program in 2021. We found that there was a ton of vehicular traffic and sort of pedestrian conflicts along some of our commercial corridors, but the sort of biggest pinch point we found was right at the Lincoln Tunnel approach on 37th Street and 9th Avenue, and then sort of as it backs up on 38th and 39th. So we did a study with Sam Schwartz, who's a traffic management firm, to look at different safety measurement indicators to see what it would look like if we use pedestrian managers and what it looks like if we don't. So we looked at blocked crosswalks, blocked intersections, and horn honks.
Patty, you may want to explain what is a pedestrian manager?
Sure. A pedestrian manager is like a crossing guard, but for adults. I'll say it like that. So it's really a focus on pedestrian over cars. So they help people cross the street. They hold cars back if there's a turn. They help to clear traffic as sort of a secondary item in order so pedestrians can cross. So we did this study and we found this is an example of some of the data that was collected. So before pedestrian managers were used, we saw a ton of occurrences of these safety measures. So crosswalk blocked or horn honks. And then after successive different amounts and different times of day with these pedestrian managers, we saw a huge decrease. So we created a full-time program, which has just been implemented this year. So we'll see them out on 37th Street and 9th Avenue. But we have found that there's sort of an issue with some of the turning cars at 37th Street. So we worked with DOT, Christine helped a lot with this, to get a new sign put in to stop cars from turning onto the Lincoln Tunnel entrance. And I tried to draw a diagram to be clear because the sign that DOT insisted on using is somewhat unclear. So the sign is showing that if you are on 37th Street, you can make a left turn, or you could continue straight, but you can't make a left and then merge into, this is called ramp C. This is the one of the tunnel entrances here. So the sign is being enforced by our pedestrian managers, and we've found some success. However, there is still a huge amount of volume on the street, and we want the program to be as successful as possible. We want people to feel safe. We want cars to continue to move through the intersection and not get blocked. So we are, here's a picture of one of our pedestrian managers. So we have been talking with the Port Authority about, because all of this stems from the Lincoln Tunnel traffic, and they of course are in charge of the Lincoln Tunnel. And they had said that they also have issues with the volume, and they have spoken with DOT about closing some of the entrances to the Lincoln Tunnel. There are several. There's some 30th, 31st, there's some 34th, 35th. I'm probably missing some 36. There's a few up here, and then you eventually exit over here at 40th. And they had approached DOT about closing down temporarily a few of them, 34th and 35th Street, to test if that would reduce a lot of this volume, if you could, reduce the merging, basically, was their hypothesis. And DOT has been very unsympathetic and told them no, that they wouldn't let them test it. But in having this pedestrian management program, I think we really need to look at other options to see if we can reduce volume so our program can be successful and there can be, just better movement through the district. So my ask is that the community board, pushes DOT to allow the Port Authority to test this out, to see if this is really going to be, helpful overall. So that's my ask. Does anyone have any questions?
Great, thanks, Patty, for that. So the ask is specifically to close specific entrances. What are the specific entrances?
So the Port Authority told us 34th and 35th is what they looked at in the most recent past, but I guess the ask could be a bit more general, and they study all their traffic very specifically. So I think it's whatever ones that they feel are like sort of creating these pinch points along here.
So the ask is like to give Port Authority the ability to conduct this study with potential entrance closures over a specific duration.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to amplify on that. This committee already wrote a letter to DOT to that effect. And it was sometime last year, and we already asked for that study to be done. And what we had, it was probably more than 12 months ago. And, I mean, DOT said, well, we like our way better, so let's try the other way. And now that we've seen the other way, we see that it can't, it can't function like that. That doesn't work forever. So I think we need to re-establish our letter and saying, now that we have seen the result of what you have done, it would be helpful to have a different test, because what you have suggested is good, but it's not sustainable.
So a new letter to that effect, referencing the earlier communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That tracks. That makes sense.
And we know that Port Authority is in favor of doing it, but DOT was against. So now we're going to have to push back on DOT.
Do we have any other questions from the committee members?
I just wanted, what's the duration
You mean of the study?
of the test? Yeah.
I would have to ask Port Authority what I think they have sort of typical timelines. They measure before and then they measure during. But I'm assuming it would be for several weeks or months, some, long amount of time to gather data.
Could be 3 months, They did it already when they changed Dyer Avenue going south. They did install cones for maybe 2-3 months to see how everything was working. And then they striped it as a, semi-permanent way. So it would be the same concept, is really install cones, bar things from happening, and then look at what happens everywhere.
So why are they opposed to just a test?
Unclear. I was told by the Port Authority they asked 5 times of DOT and DOT said no every time. So they asked, if the bid is supportive of this and the community board is supportive of it, to please push it so they could try it again.
But because the first go around, the DOT wanted to do their solution, which was the sign. And the sign supported by, so now we gave in, we let them do their solution, and their solution doesn't quite work. So now we have a new way to go back and say, look, your solution doesn't work. So what are you going to do? And here's another idea. Why don't you do it?
Nice sign, but let's try this.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? So I think the action we would take would be to write a letter in support of this study, referencing our earlier communication on the topic, and asking DOT to search its conscience and consider another approach.
Right.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Motion to adopt.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor of such a motion?
Aye.
And to do a little begging.
Some begging,
Begging
some
works.
shaming.
So wait a minute, we have people raised hand. And Alice, what are we doing here? These are votes?
These are all in favors.
Oh, okay.
And now that we've counted the favors, do we have any opposed? I don't see any opposed. Okay. And any peonies? No. All right. So that's a unanimous pass.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it. And I really appreciate those agents living where I live. Okay, so the 5th item is postponed. We're going to hear from Erik Bottcher's office next month about the ghost plate legislation. We did have a couple of new business items. One was from Brett and the other one was from Alan. Brett, go ahead with yours.
Okay, I think I'm gonna share my screen in a moment, and I said this would take about a minute. Just wanted to update from an old item. You can time it. I practice this, so I might go over because it's not 10 o'clock yet, but and it might take me a minute to figure out how to share my screen. But anyway, here we go. You can see the screen okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So y'all might remember the sidewalk 8th Avenue and 29th Street. This dent in the sidewalk had been here before I moved into the neighborhood. So at least 20 some years, longer, 25 years, probably more. So there was a lot of determination, persistence, countless 311 calls and reports, probably in the dozens, if not the hundreds, to fix this over the many, many long years. Did I mention that this is a West Sidewalk story that involves determination and triumph and tragedy? Well, at the end of March, look at this. There was an actual construction project, and they fixed the sidewalk. It was beautiful, and of course there was much rejoicing. So, but unfortunately, the story doesn't really end there. I didn't have time to take pictures of the sidewalk to show how glorious it looked, because then along came the big bad wolf. Oh, I'm sorry, the big bad wolf's not wearing that hat in the story. Then along came the big bad wolf, and he huffed and he puffed and he blew the sidewalk apart, leaving behind half of a sight impaired tread. And someone came along and decided S&M were their two favorite letters in the newly kind of repaired sidewalk. So that's my report on what happened. We only have half of a pad at that part of the intersection. And I don't know if there's a moral of the story, just to kind of state the woe of what happens where a sidewalk that took literally more than a quarter of a century to build took kind of only about a week to really mark up. And that's my report on what happened there. I don't know if there's a way to ask Con Ed if they can please put the sidewalk back into the state that they had found it.
Aren't they responsible to do that? And according to their,
I don't know that. So you can see that pad is cut in half. It used to go all the way across there. So
will you send us that specific photo?
Sure. Jeannie actually has the whole presentation, so it's all
okay.
there, and I can send that photo separate, and we can walk by there. But I don't know. It's just I was just kind of beside myself when I saw how quickly. But anyway, that was my presentation. It was probably about a minute and a half. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. Congratulations on your.
I love it.
And condolences on your loss. But do you have any information on the specific Con Ed project, whether it was emergency work or?
No.
Oh, but DOT has that.
Yeah, DOT.
You can say this is a project that ended in 1 week ago, and they have that information.
Yeah, like how could they not have like coordinated? Like, oh wait, you're doing that sidewalk. Oh wait, can we just get in there before you finish? Like, but it's just. If it was scheduled, then it's a real tragedy.
Stranger things have happened in the city, for sure, than Con Ed and the DOT.
But bravo for the sidewalk. This was a real disaster. And
Dave,
it is.
do you have your hand up about this?
Yes, I do. I was going to suggest that we send a letter to the electeds regarding this, and also the governor, or the state senate or assembly, because they're in charge of regulating utility companies. And also Con Edison. We send it to Con Ed, but we see all these people. And unfortunately, I've been for years trying to get someone to develop a computer program where when they're doing construction on streets, so it can be regulated. I mean, a lot of this haphazard comes when they were using index cards, so they didn't know. So they would start a project, finish a project. A couple of months later, they'd redo the whole thing for another agency. With computers, that can all be streamlined, but it hasn't. So I don't know who can bring us into the 21st.
I think if we just send that information to Colleen and say, hey, they didn't finish the job and they didn't finish the thing, they're going to pay attention, because that's very important.
I think we can start with an email, and if not, we'll escalate.
I was also going to bring up something just unrelated, but to next month's agenda. If
Well,
you're interested in
David,
ghost license plates, just read
David.
the street blog series. That's it. Just read the street blog series on ghost license plates, and you'll get a lot of information. Then you'll be able to ask Bottcher when he comes.
okay, thanks. All right, Alan, you had an old new business?
Old new business. Well, firstly, maybe now that we have a director of the realm, these things, maybe they won't take 25 years to get fixed. Maybe it'll take 10 years and then they'll get banged up, but who knows? Going back to 22nd Street, the 500 block, which was mentioned earlier today. A while back, I think DOT was here requesting some input from us about bike stations along the west side, because there seems to be a dearth of accessible bike stations there. And one of the streets, one of the bike stations that was pointed out was the one that used to be on the south side, 22nd Street at 11th Avenue, which was removed several years ago for the construction by the related building. Excuse me, I have to let my dog out. Otherwise.
What's happening? He's living right in the middle.
He's taking his dog out. All right.
So I see what.
Nothing big. It's just a patio, but she gets nuts if she can't get out there. But anyway, okay.
So you want to ask it back, so that would reduce the size, right? That would take space.
Yeah, well, there's more to it at this point. So meanwhile, in the interim, Related built its building. People have been moving in, and they had constructed a fenced-in staging area on the north side of that street, which they used for building the building. Now, and I'm sorry, I would try to share the screen, but it would take an hour for me to figure that out with pictures. So maybe I'll just send it in for the co-chairs. So right now they're using that really for garbage. So number one, when is that going to be removed? Because it's a bit of a hazard, because that's a right-hand turn going west on 22nd Street. There's a light here. There's a crosswalk somewhere else. A lot of people don't cross on the crosswalk. They cross because they're going to the dog park, which is across the street. So they cross there. Meanwhile, they don't see the cars coming down 22nd Street because of this fenced-in area. Meanwhile, across the street on the north side, a private school moved in to what used to be the Hewlett Packard building, which was renovated. And in the last maybe a couple of months or so, employees of the school are now parking in a no standing zone, which has made that street even worse in terms of narrowness. And who's giving permission for those folks to park there? Everybody has a letter on their dashboard from the school. So the school has given their employees permission to park there, and DOT, or not DOT, but parking enforcement walks down the street, gives people tickets that are applicable for whatever the sign says, and walks past these cars that have this official, it's on school letterhead, and signed by the facilities manager or something. I give these folks permission to park.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
Absolutely
Obviously,
not.
but it means something to these enforcement agents. And
what else is new?
Doesn't it get,
So Alan, what is it that you want us to do here? Except I understand that you would be frustrated, but
right. Well, there's a combination of things. I don't know if the shed, if the fenced-in area comes under this purview, or have to do this in front of landmarks or something. But let's get rid of the fenced-in area. They can keep their garbage
that's
somewhere
something
else.
that you need to send to Jesse and ask him his help with that.
I spoke to Jesse, has been on top of this a little bit. He's been trying to work it through the precinct, but I think we need to take the DOT.
For the shed? For the shed?
Oh, no, the shed. No, I haven't mentioned this.
I'm talking about the shed.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Yeah, let's focus on the shed, because the other thing is such a much bigger cultural, sociological, whatever issue that we're never going to resolve, right?
Well, why can't we send a letter to DOT or I'm sorry, Colleen left, but why are these people not being ticketed?
It would go to traffic enforcement.
Right. Okay.
And
so
I mean, we can try, but we get nowhere with them.
Right. We go nowhere with that. I mean, it's like,
You know,
wasting your time.
Newsflash, we have an unaccountable police force in New York
Right.
City.
So we got to keep
Charlie has an idea.
knocking on the door.
I was just, wasn't it on our agenda a couple of times and then got taken off of Bottcher's office or someone coming to talk about placards? I mean,
next month.
It's coming next month, and Charlie, that's a great tie-in. Like, we can definitely mention. I mean, it would be great if this committee itemized all the areas where this kind of abuse, whether it's ghost plate legislation or fake placards, is
or fake or I mean, this is not even a placard. This is not even a city placard. This is like, where did it come off? Like,
yeah, I mean, all it takes is a orange vest, and you can park anywhere in the city right now. It's, I mean, certainly anywhere within 1 mile of a police station.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also reach out to the school and say what you're doing is not right.
That's been done. I think the Block Association has done that. I think they've had a conversation with.
It's a charter school.
It's a private school. It's similar to Avenues. Basis independent school.
Right.
My suggestion.
The only thing we could do. The only thing we could do is, that bike share you wanted to install?
Yeah.
We can install it right in front of the school.
Right, exactly. That's where it was before. So
Okay, so we could write a letter about that, say, we want that station to go back and be installed at this location, which currently is no standing and could benefit, there is a school and they could benefit to have bikes.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
I'd be happy to draft it for you.
Okay, Alan is on the hook.
I was going to suggest contacting the police community council, and if that doesn't work, emailing the NYPD community relations and the police commissioner.
No, but the best thing to do,
your idea I like better.
Right. You need to put a physical thing.
Right. Get the bikes back. Absolutely.
Right. So do you want to take a vote, Dale, on that?
I'm sorry, just 1 second. Tina, is your hand up on this?
I mean, it was the one entity that might be interested in this is the Department of Finance, because they're the ones who get all the money from all the violations. I don't know who's there, but the bottom line is they're losing tons of money.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our money.
Right.
Viren, did you have your hand up on this, or was it already said?
No, Christine actually answered the question. I was just going to suggest that if we write to DOT and school simultaneously the same letter, it might be a bit more effective. But I think part of that has already been done. And what Christine is suggesting is probably going to be much more effective. If you can put the bike racks back there, right, it might solve the problem.
Yeah, and I think it's an easier ask for us with DOT to say, hey, there was a bike rack here and then it went away, let's put it back. Without even raising the topic of
all right, so let's
fake placards from schools.
Let's take a
okay. Do we have a motion to write a letter to DOT requesting a bike rack at this location, or the reinstallation of a bike rack at this location?
I make that motion.
And a second, and by a show of hands, all in favor? Is anyone opposed to this? Any P&Es?
All right.
Anyone who parks on that? Okay.
Great idea, Christine. I love it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, David. I think that brings us to a close. We'll have a full agenda next week. We'll get these letters together and circulate them to you for your comments and and corrections. And thank you as always for the solid meeting.
Very good.
And we'll see you next month.
Good night.